What are we doing today? We're talking about cylinder heads today on Wrench Fetish. Hey guys, it's Ben coming to you from Wrench Fetish. Here to talk a little bit more about my 62 Falcon that we talked about the other day in my intro video. Yep, still sitting, still not pretty, still not done. But what I'm going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about what I've actually been doing. Why is this car not done? Why is it not together? Because a couple months ago, it was running and driving, and I was taking it back and forth to work every day. It wasn't a long ways, because it probably wouldn't have gone a long ways, but I was driving it. And I took a perfectly fine running, driving car that was not overheating, was not missing any cylinders, wasn't low on compression, wasn't just falling apart. It was actually super fun. But I took it apart, and this is why. So, real quick tech about these cars, the straight sixes that came in the Fords, anything from the 144 all the way up to the 250, which would have been considered Ford's small block straight six. Okay, there were small differences through the years, but they were all fundamentally the same motor, the same DNA if you got into it. Now, there's a whole different genre of big block Ford straight sixes, the 240, the 300, great motors. They were in lots of trucks, and they still get used in lots of stuff to this day. They're great motors, but they're not really designed to go in a car this small. They can be done, and there's a guy out there running a 10-second Maverick with a turbo straight six 300 in it. That's just nasty, and I love it, and it's wonderfully inspiring, but it's not mine, and it's not gonna be mine, but I'm gonna build what I got, because I got some stuff sitting in front of me. So the intake is cast onto the head of these cars. All right, there's nothing you can do with them. You can't port and polish the intake side. You can do work on the exhaust side, and you can bump up your exhaust valves, and you can de-shroud the valves and all kinds of stuff, but you really are always going to be limited by the super small anemic intake on these cars. And they're set up for a one-barrel intake, like the Autolite 1100, the 1101, the Holly 1904, or something like that. I'm probably getting it wrong, but you know, the small flowing single barrels. So you're always limited by what they have, and you get stumbly throttle response and great gas mileage, but we can do better than that here on Wrench Fetish, because we like burnouts, and we like to make anything a little rowdier than it was before we started. So I'm going to show you real quick here. So this is what I started with. This is the stock small log intake for a Ford 144 straight six. Okay, you can decode a few things here that are pretty important to note on this motor. All right, I've had a lot of people ask me on my Facebook group recently, how can they tell what their motor is? All right, especially with Ford's casting numbers. This is the sequence right here, the CODE 6090C. Okay, these don't quite matter. The C is a rev level, like how many revisions they made to this casting during its run, and that's less important as this. C starts out your casting number with the decade the casting was formed. C would have been in the 60s, okay? The second digit, the 0 here, is the year subsequent to the decade, so this would have been 0, so this would have been a 1960 casting. D would have indicated that this was meant for a Falcon, and E, it came from their engine group. And there's some differentiation here and there with those castings, like in the same, you know, numbers matching sense, that E might be a different letter on the block, on the trans, but they're all going to have a COD if it came out of one of these cars and they all came together. So in this case, that's how I know this was from a 144 Ford straight six. You're going to notice the tiny little carb input here. I think this is only an inch and a half at most diameter inlet, and that is just underwhelming in any sense. So that's kind of on the lame side, and the actual volume of this intake runner here is super small. These are your intake runners coming off of the log, okay? And those, again, they're kind of small, and there's nothing you can do. And you know that it's cast inside of there. I try and get you a shot of that, but it's not going to look real well. So that's what I had. Now, I'm not really all into that. And I said this car can't run right now. That's because I refuse to put that head back on. You know what I mean? So why would I not put that head back on? Why am I going to say that my car can't run right now? It's because I'm in the process of something a little more rad, in my opinion. So I'm going to take what I've got and I'm going to make it better with the skills that I try and do in my fetishizing of wrenching. So, a couple months ago, the other side of the YouTube channel and myself, that would be Josh, we rolled down to Pennsylvania. We caught up with a guy who had some parts that we really wanted for a couple of our projects. This guy had a 250 straight six. He had some headers for a V8 Maverick and a whole bunch of other parts. And we said, I'm going to go down to this guy's place in the springtime while everything's wet and while his seasonal roads are barely open, and let's go buy parts in a truck without a trailer. So I'll try and find some pictures that would illustrate exactly what we were doing, but it was a little out of hand, but it was kind of worth it. So I'm going to walk you around my garage just for a minute here, and I'm going to show you a few things that I picked up from this guy. Shop dog. That's Tilly. She's kind of cool. Whatever. Stack of rims. And this here. This is a Ford 250 straight six. This is the biggest of the small sixes, and it's kind of sad, it's kind of tired, and it's never going in my car. But next to it is a pair of headers. That is going in this car. Yep, those are Hooker full-length, long tube, nasty jobbies. They're pretty cool. I'll show you more on those later. Let's go this way. Don't mind the mess. Sometimes I clean, sometimes I don't. I'm a busy guy. This is a Ford C4. This would have been a 6-cylinder transmission intended for only a straight six application, not the same as a V8. Guess it doesn't matter. Want it back. And now I'm going to show you what I'm actually doing. This is the intake that I'm in the process of. This is the head that came off of that Ford 250. This would have been the most desirable head that Ford made for their straight sixes. And this is what I'm doing with it. You'll notice that there is no intake left on this thing. There's nothing. That's because I milled it off. When you cut all of this off, you can end up with something like this. Now this has probably got 10 hours worth of work into it, getting it to this point. Okay, all of this blue area here would have been missing. All right, that would have been the inside of the intake runner. I filled it in. There are silicon bronze brazed in baffles in between all the runners here, and then I filled in the valleys with a high temperature, high strength resin basically. It's drillable, it's tappable. No, it's not the stuff you buy at Home Depot. It is a very high industrial yield strength that we work with in machine shops. Okay, so what I did was a lot of porting and polishing on the exhaust side. I did unshroud the valves, and I've been basically getting this head ready to go. So again, what I've been trying to do with this head is get the most out of what I have sitting in front of me. If I know that the biggest problem with these heads is the flow on the intake side, I got to get it out of my way. So that's what I did. I cut the whole thing off with a zip wheel here in the garage on a weekend when I'd rolled my ankle and I could do nothing other than barely move around on some clutches. Clutches? See? Everybody's stuck on what they like the most. And apparently I'm stuck on that third pedal. I was actually on crutches. It was pretty rank. But I cut the intake off with a zip wheel, and I just said, I'm going to take this thing to work, I'm going to throw it on a mill, and I'm going to start cutting and making what I want. Even if it isn't perfect, it's going to be hopefully different, right? Sure. So I've been cutting, and bear with me here. What a beautiful face. And I made this guy. All right. I used a portable coordinate measuring machine. It's called a Faro arm from Faro Industries. We use it at work. And I scanned all of my intake runner ports that are actually coming out of the head. And I got a 3D model of what they actually look like so that I can basically generate a CAD model, blend it to what I need, cut what I want, and turn it into something that'll hopefully work in a slightly more precise and maybe a little bit less ugly kind of way. So there's a lot of fundamental discussion about what works, what doesn't work, and I don't know what's going to work better, so I'm just going to make what I want to make. Hopefully it works. So I made that. That is going to attach to all of. This is 1.75 inch outside diameter, 1.5 inch inside diameter, 6061 aluminum tubing. I'm going to use that to cut up and make intake runners. This plating here, it's all going into work. That's going to get cut on a CNC, it's going to get bent, and it's going to make the intake bowl that the carb's going to sit on. Now, what is the carb going to bolt to? What carb am I using? That's this guy. It's a typical Ford Motorcraft 2-barrel carb. Nothing fancy. Anything larger than that, and I don't have a cam for it in the motor. But what I do have is something for it to bolt to. So since I decided you can't buy anything for this intake, there's lots of options in Australia, there's lots of options in South America, but I am in neither of those. And you know, I actually went as far as installing the South American eBay app on my phone, because I thought maybe if I can muddle through some kind of Spanish translator, maybe I could find something interesting. Nope, not gonna work. So I made this. This is gonna be the basis for the intake. Carb, obviously, as you saw me unbolted, is gonna bolt onto this. This is the top side, and then on the underside, we have this. This is gonna get welded in, and hopefully I'll have some decent flowing, wonderfully atomized air-fuel mixture flowing into my cylinder head right there. So that's what I've been working on this week. I've been cutting, I've been bending, I've been not really welding yet, but we're going to be getting that stuff to the shop later on this week. We're going to start cutting, we're going to start welding, and we're going to make. That's going to be kind of cool. What I will show that's kind of been a little tough for me to get around is this. I want all this together. I want it together now. You'll notice I got the motor back into the car. I got the trans bolted in. Everything is pretty much waiting for that cylinder head that's on the bench to get ready to go. I'm going to throw a new Pertronics in it, new fuel filter, maybe some more fun goodies. But other than that, once that head's ready to go with an intake on it and a carb that's ready to work, this car should fire. That's my build. That's what I got going on right now. I got a few more goodies that are coming soon. As Josh said in his last blog entry, that we've only got about 28 days to get this car together. So why is there a deadline? Now, I don't think Josh mentioned it. I know I haven't mentioned it yet, and I'm pretty sure the other guy that's involved in this has not mentioned it because he doesn't do this. What we got going on is the Hilton Apple Fest is coming up in a couple weeks here in Western New York. And it's kind of the last car show of the year. There's apple pies, and it's usually cold and rainy, and that's, you know, that's Western New York. That's just how it goes down here. This car is going to be there. The Horse with No Name is going to be there. And Chevelle Paul is coming out with the Chevelle. He's been working up an EFI system on his car, and we all kind of give ourselves these, let's get it done by such and such and see what the public thinks of it. They're going to think they're ugly, and that's cool, but we're going to write our own story here. We're going to put some buckets in front of these cars and some little tear-off tabs, and we want to see which car either people like or hate the most. Either you like it a lot or you hate it a lot, and you want to vote for us to win something amongst the three of us. We haven't decided what anybody's winning. It's mostly going to be bragging rights and maybe an oil change or a burger or something like that. But that's where we're going to go. That's why there's a deadline. That's why this car's got to run. That's why I've got to stop talking and I got to get to wrenching. Later on this week, I'm going to put up hopefully a little video of me wrenching, maybe fabbing some stuff up, setting some things up, and we're going to start cutting, bending, and welding some runners. Stay tuned. I hope it doesn't suck, and I hope I see you soon. Keep wrenching. Wrench Fetish. I'm Ben, and I'm out.